Okay, the Mishnah tells us that initially if a husband would want to nullify a get, to cancel a get, he would do it before a bezdin. We're not talking about an official bezdin. Now the question is, how many people are considered a bezdin? 2 or 3. Itma b'fnei kama hu mevatlo. When he goes and he cancels the get, which means cancel, we had before, did he cancel the agent, or did he actually nullify the get where the get cannot be used again? So it came out before, the get can't be used again. It's canceling either because you can't cancel the get, even if you try to cancel it, because if the get was written properly with the right intent, saying something which was written correctly, you cannot undo that. Okay? Or the question was, when he canceled the get, it doesn't mean you're canceling the get, but rather you're just canceling the agency, so the person can't deliver the get. So now the question, when you make that initial cancellation, it says you have to before bezdin. So b'fnei kamu v'vatlo, Rav Nachman b'fnei beis. It should be before 2 individuals. Rav Shesham b'fnei gimel. It has to be before 3.
You just said that once you write something that is written correctly, you cannot change the status of that.
But Rav Sheshes said you could. It was my argument with Rav Nachman, Rav Sheshes. We rule like Rav Nachman, that's what we say can't. You cannot. But Tosas, so how do we understand Rav Sheshes? Okay? So Tosas explains that Rav Sheshes, and the Gemara explains because it's lo osi dim vatul masu, that once an action has been done, a verbal statement cannot cancel, it cannot undo an action. So the action was done, it was infused, it was written, the man was authorized to write the get. So why can't it be undone? I mean, how could he undo it? So he explains that Rav Sheshes is of the opinion that until the get actually is given to the woman, it's only considered in potential. It's not a maaseh. When you give a woman money to marry, that was the whole discussion over there. There was an argument, is that, right? Because there's nothing intrinsic in the money to indicate it's the most kedushin. So over there, it's only the consent that she can agree to accept the money for kedushin. Right? So there we have an argument Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and there we rule like Rabbi Yochanan, not like Rish Lakish. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan says she can, if she wants to reject it before 30 days comes, she's not married.
But I can give an example of where verbal action can render something possible.
Okay.
So if someone writes a Sefer Torah, kosher, everything's fine, and then he dedicates the Sefer Torah to Avodah Zarah, I think, don't we say the Sefer Torah is possible? It's a verbal declaration. This is what I...
What do you mean? He's donating it to a church.
Yes, or to an Avodah Zarah, the old-fashioned Avodah Zarah.
But they just own it?
He wrote it.
Let's say he would deify it. He would deify it. What he worships it. He worships the Sefer Torah as if it would be a deity, right? Donating wouldn't affect it.
He makes a declaration, and this is Avodah Zarah.
No, it's not that. Let's say it wouldn't be enough. He'd have to worship it. Words alone would not be enough. Would not be enough. Not be enough. He'd have to worship it.
So it isn't worship, but
It's an action.
it's a form of
No, it's action. Action.
It's a speech.
Okay, let's say he would say, Ze'eli, this is my God. But that's something else. That would be the equivalent of like a consecration. That would be the equivalent of a consecration. No, but what's invalidating it is it's a side issue. What about if I take a Sefer Torah? Let's say it would catch fire and burn, right? So it doesn't exist. What you've done, you've abominated the Sefer Torah. The reason why it's possible is not because it's lacking in the lishma. It's been abominated. Being worshipped causes it. Now it's become an abomination to Sefer Torah. That's why you can't use it. It becomes Yisur HaNo. You're not permitted even the benefit from it. It doesn't make a difference. No, but it's different. Here the nullification is, I don't want it should function as a get. But why shouldn't it function as a get? There, it's because it's been abominated. Being abominated, that's the reason why it cannot be. Right? That's why it cannot be used by the Sefer Torah. The get, same thing, everybody agrees. Let's see, you take the get, he'd worship the get. Everybody would agree the get cannot be used. It becomes Yisur HaNo. a good question. That's a good question. Okay?
He's coming to help.
That question is from down under. Okay. It's a better question. But we once said something. Why it's not a question. And this goes back, again, this is boomerang back to David. Boomerang from down under. You see that? Okay, we need Nachi Horowitz for this one. Okay, it's not here. If you remember, Tosas Shita, his position is even if your mitzvah ain't shita is kavanah, right? If you have a negative intent that you don't want it should have value, it doesn't have value, right? That's Tosas, and we hold this way that if you do a mitzvah and you have in mind that you don't want to be yotzei, that's what Tosas says in Sukkah. Even if you hold mitzvah is kavanah, when you take the dalid medium, you take the lulav, because the question is the moment you take it, you yotzei the mitzvah. So how do you say the bracha after you yotzei the mitzvah? Tosas says you should have in mind specifically that you don't want to be yotzei the mitzvah. You don't have to verbal. You have that in mind, so therefore you did not fulfill the mitzvah. So now when you take it and you say the bracha, it's pre mitzvah rather than post mitzvah. That's one of the answers Tosas gives. The way we do, we invert it. So since we take it in an inverted position, it's not really taking it properly. So therefore you're not yotzei. But Tosas says even if you don't do that, if you have in mind that you don't want to be yotzei, you're not yotzei. So the Shai Kasari asks a question which seems to refute Tosas from the Gemara in Eruvin, because the Gemara says in Eruvin that if you find tefillin in a public area in Rosh Hashanah Shabbos and they can be desecrated, you're permitted to put on 2 pairs of tefillin. Is an argument. Could you put on 2 pairs of tefillin at one time or only one at a time? And over there's a question about Tosif. Because you're wearing 2 pairs of tefillin. So the Gemara says, what is it based upon? Whether mitzvah shlichus kavanah, mitzvah ain't shlichus kavanah. If you have mitzvah shlichus kavanah, if the mitzvah value when you have kavanah, he doesn't have to have in mind he's doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. So therefore, he's not adding to anything. But if your mitzvah ain't shlichus kavanah, when he puts on there, whether he has kavanah or not, he's adding to the mitzvah. So the Shai could say yes, but according to Tosas, even the opinion of mitzvah ain't shlichus kavanah, if you have in mind that you don't want its value, it has no value, so everybody should agree should be able to put on 2 pairs of tefillin. So evidently, you see from the Gemara, Shai says that the position of Tosas is incorrect from that Gemara. Okay? We once discussed this. The Obar Mitzvah Parsha. Okay? In a pre-life. If he would have been Bar Mitzvah Munkach, he would have said this. So Reb Shlomo Hyman answers the question. He says one thing has nothing to do with another. He says if you take a look at Tosas' words in Sukkah, even if you have mitzvahs, even if you have a negative intent, it doesn't change the status of it's still a mitzvah action. You've added to the mitzvah. What Tosas says, let's say a person does a mitzvah and he says, I don't want its schar. I don't want to get credit for the mitzvah. God doesn't force credit upon anyone. So over there he should have in mind he doesn't want to be yotzei. The mitzvah is a mitzvah action. Mitzvah shlichus kavanah, ain't shlichus kavanah means that even if you don't have kavanah, automatically you get credit. You're credited. It's always an act of a mitzvah. Because the intent doesn't give it its profile of mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. But in addition, one even gets credit, is a credit for the mitzvah. What do you say? I don't want to be accredited. We don't accredit your account for that. So therefore, if you have that negative intent, it's still pre-mitzvah, therefore you still could say the bracha. Although you did an action of mitzvah, but you weren't yotzei. Wait a second. So therefore, the same thing, if a person right before he dies, he says, all the good deeds I've ever done, I don't want to be credited for them. I wish I never did them. You did all the actions. But this is already talking about accrediting the account. I don't want my account to be accredited for all those mitzvahs. If that's the case, it's over. The actions that stand. Right, exactly. Right, because you've rejected it. I'm not saying you come the other. He has to study that. He did an action. How does he negate it? That was your question. The answer. Okay, so good. Doesn't negate the action. Exactly. Okay. So now we have a question when he nullifies the get or the agency, and the person Mishnah uses the term bezdin. Rav Nachum b'fnei beis, two is sufficient. Rav Shesham b'fnei gimel. Rav Shesham b'fnei gimel, bezdin could on. It says in the Mishnah, bezdin's always conventional. Bezdin is three. So therefore, when the Mishnah says to be nullified in the presence of bezdin, it's three. Rav Nachman Amar b'fnei beis. The beitrei nami bezdin correlate. We find that a bezdin is also referred to even when you only have two, not three. We'll see. In this context, l'chatchila. So Tosfos explains like this. It's interesting. There's not, and he shows that this has there's a machlokes in Sanhedrin. We had that Beis on Beis that Shmuel holds, and we rule like Shmuel. What's a bezdin chotzuf? An insolent bezdin. It says shnaim shadonu dineim din. If two people they give a verdict, the verdict regarding monetary case, it's valid, but it's a bezdin chotzuf. But it's an arrogant court. It's an insolent court. It's brazen. Because you should have three. But the other two are okay. So Tosfos goes to show over here. Rav Nachman over here, we're talking about this l'chatchila. We're not talking. Why is it brazen? What do you have to have three judges? Because the whole concept is, that the whole discussion over there is, either because you have to have rov. If you have to have rov, then you have to have three always. There's no two, even b'diavad would not be. But the Gemara says over there that because No, because the Dayanim have to have an understanding of even though they're not, even ordinary people could be a bezdin for monetary. But the question is, but you don't know the ins and outs of the halacha. So how do you qualify to be a dayan, right? To sit on a case where there's a monetary dispute. So the Gemara says, of course, anybody who's engages in business, he understands the rudiments of business, of commerce. So you understand, is he a thief? Is he not a thief? You understand this. And Moshe says, but maybe he's a Yoshvi Kronos. Maybe the guy sits and whittles away his time. The man has no understanding of anything. He doesn't no understanding of commerce. Moshe says no, because it's inevitable that within three you can have minimally one. You can have one, or one or two of them. So therefore, two is okay. Because on a Torah level, you only need one. You don't need three. You only need three, so you should have the number that within that number you're going to have a person who understands commerce. So, but over here we're not talking about. It's not talking about understanding anything. This is to make a declaration, because we'll see in a question for word to get back to the woman that the husband canceled the get. That's the whole discussion over here. Lower, lesser, because he shows that even though Rava rejects Shmuel and Sanhedrin, Rava rules over here that, like Rav Nachman, that two is sufficient. Well, we'll discuss. You need no experts whatsoever. As long as you're a Jew. Two Jews, they qualify. Okay? Rav Shesham Fnei Gimel. So now the question is, what was the basis? Because you find that Bezdin, the times were Bezdin, and now the question is, where do you find? Where do you find a Bezdin two are referred to as Bezdin? Omer of Nachman Nami, look, where do we find two? Did none? If a person wants to protect his debt, that it should not be canceled as a result of the sabbatical year ending, so he writes a prusbel. What does he do? So Rashi explains he gives the debt over to the court. So now the court, they're considered the creditors. The Torah says, lo yigos ish bereu. A fellow is not permitted to collect the debt from his fellow. If the debt is given over to the court is not the fellow of an individual. So the court is a way to protect the debt, that the debt shouldn't be canceled, because it's no longer, the creditor is no longer a fellow, the creditor is the bezdin. So what do you write? I'm giving over to you the documents, ploni hadayonim shemokum ploni. So how many people are being mentioned? Two. See, and there's a bezdin. We will stop.